Once upon a time in a distant kingdom of India, there was a wise and generous king. Everyone in the kingdom lived happily and praised the king for his kindness and generosity. The king had a minister who was known far and wide for his wisdom and his persistent belief in a simple but profound principle. Whatever happens, happens for good. The king admired his minister's wisdom but couldn't quite understand how every situation, no matter how disastrous and horrifying, could be seen as good. He decided to test the minister's faith in this principle many times, but the minister somehow came clean on every test, proving his words to be true. At the end, the king had to let go of the wish to test his minister's belief, and he eventually forgot about all of this. One day, the king was practicing with his royal weapons, and the minister sat beside him, offering his counsel and support while watching him showcasing his great moves. But in a sudden and unfortunate accident, the sword slipped from the king's hand and fell on his foot, severing one of his toes. The pain was too severe, and the king's face contorted in agony. Everyone present there panicked for their lives because of the king's anger. However, the minister, true to his beliefs, calmly uttered, "Whatever happens, happens for good." The king, furious and in pain, was baffled by this response. He snapped at the minister, "My toe has been cut off, and you dare say that this is for my good? What good could possibly come from this?" His anger got the better of him, and he ordered his minister to be imprisoned in the royal dungeon, saying, "Now I will see how this order happens for good for you." As the guards led the minister away to his cell, he maintained his composure and, with a serene smile, repeated, "Whatever happens, happens for good." Completely bewildered by his minister's unshakable faith, the king began to question whether there was a deeper dimension to this philosophy that was beyond his understanding. 2 months passed since the incident, and the king's anger had somewhat subsided as he had completely forgotten about the incident. One sunny morning, he decided to go on a hunting expedition with his loyal soldiers. Riding on their horses, they ventured deep into a dense forest. In the excitement of the chase, the king found himself separated from his entourage, lost in the maze-like paths of the dense forest. As the king searched frantically for a way out, he suddenly found himself surrounded by a group of tribal people living in the forest. These tribals were unfamiliar with the king's kingdom or the language spoken there. They also didn't recognize him as their ruler. To them, he was just another human who had stumbled into their territory. The tribal people had a custom of capturing and sacrificing humans to appease their deity. The king, terrified for his life, pleaded with them to spare him. However, he was captured due to the language barrier between them, as the tribals spoke a different language and couldn't understand his pleas. They rejoiced in capturing their victim, bathing him, adorning him in new clothes, and even preparing him for the sacrificial ritual. Just as they were about to end the king's life, the chief of the tribe noticed something. One of the king's toes was missing. He ordered the drums and chants to stop and declared, "This man cannot be sacrificed. He is incomplete, and our deity will be angered if we offer an incomplete sacrifice." With that, they released the king, who couldn't believe his luck. He returned to his palace safely, deeply grateful for his unexpected escape. As he reflected on this turn of events, he realized the profound truth in his minister's words. If his toe hadn't been severed in the earlier accident, he might not have escaped the clutches of those tribals. The king had learned firsthand that whatever happens, happens for good. Back at the palace, the king immediately ordered the release of his minister from the dungeon and reinstated him in his position. He wanted to hear from his minister about the events that had unfolded that day. The minister was released and returned to the royal court, where the king asked, "Minister, I understand that the disfigurement of my toe was good for me, but please explain to me how the loss of my toe and your imprisonment were for your good. I am beginning to understand your theory, but I need your wisdom to fully grasp the meaning." The minister, with a warm smile, replied, "My lord, I was your loyal minister, and I was always by your side. Had I not been imprisoned during that time, I would have accompanied you on that fateful hunting trip. If I had been there with you, the tribal people would have recognized us as nobility and sacrificed both of us. But because I was imprisoned and was not with you that day, I am saved. As they spared your life because you lost your toe, but would definitely have sacrificed me because of being perfectly abled. Thus, it was indeed for our good that I was in jail. The king was deeply moved by the minister's explanation and acknowledged the profound truth in the minister's belief. From that day forward, the king adopted the minister's mantra as his own. He understood that life's events, whether perceived as good or bad, were guided by a greater force and were ultimately for the best. So in the end, the story teaches us a valuable life lesson. It reminds us that we often judge events in our lives based on our limited understanding and emotions at the moment. We may see adversity as a setback, but it can lead to unexpected opportunities and blessings that we wouldn't have seen coming. Just as the minister's unwavering faith in whatever happens, happens for good ultimately saved both the king and himself, we can find solace in the idea that there is a larger plan at play in our lives even when things seem to go awry. This tale highlights the concept of karma, where our actions have consequences and we reap what we sow. Just like the king imprisoned his minister for no fault of his, he was also captured in a similar manner. And just like he had shown mercy by not executing the minister, he also escaped from the tribals. The story also highlights that all the events in our lives are connected, even those we initially perceive as negative, and they contribute to our growth and well-being. In our own lives, we may encounter hardships, setbacks, and moments of despair. However, the story of the king and his minister reminds us to keep faith in the grand design of life, to trust that adversity may be a hidden blessing, and that whatever happens, happens for good. This belief can help us face challenges with resilience, optimism, and the knowledge that our journey, in the end, is guided by a higher purpose. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to leave us a thumbs up. Show your support by subscribing to our channel for more such content, and we'll see you in the next one.